Now, this was something that my wife actually noticed. And take into account that my wife isn't into the culture war. Like, she doesn't even know what a Democrat is. She doesn't know what a Republican is. She doesn't even know what wokeness is. She's a Romanian woman. And she's concerned about Romanian things. Like, she just doesn't know about the United States of America and doesn't really spend that much time on the internet besides talking to her family. So, this is why I value her opinion, because it's interesting to see how a normal person thinks about these things. Like when you're not terminally online and you're not part of the conversation and you're just noticing things in the world, it's interesting to see what her thoughts are. So basically, she's watching Netflix, and I think it was The Wheel of Time, and she asks me, "Why are the women so old?" And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, every single woman in this show, that's the witch. And according to the Lord, they're supposed to be some of the most beautiful women in existence. Why is it that all of them are middle aged and they have these 10 out of 10 husbandos? So the reason she was asking is that she was actually trying to get herself immersed into the storyline. And for her, it wouldn't make sense that the men that could have literally any woman they wanted, like they had the personality, they had the body, they had the looks, in order to be with literally any woman in the world, and they would settle for mid. Right? Like for her, it's like not something that humans do. It's like, okay, well, you can have like one case like that, you can have two cases like that, but it was almost like every single relationship. And this was also similar with He-Man, right? Like He-Man, the Prince of the Universe, also 10 out of 10. Like he can be with any woman. Like he's also royalty, very courageous, brave, good looking, perfect athletic body. He can be with any woman he wants, and he's with Tila. And Tila looks like a man. And also, on top of that, she has a rotten personality, much like many of the female characters in The Wheel of Time. And then I did notice, you know what? Like, that is correct. Like, if you compare the video games from the previous era, if you compare the video games from before 2016, yeah, like, characters were much younger. And there is a story reason for this, right? There is a writer reason for this. Usually, you want to write your characters to be around 4 or 5 years older than the target audience. So, if you want to make something for teenagers, the main character shouldn't be older than 25. They should be somewhere between the age of 18 and 25. If you make something for kids, right? Like if you make something for 9-year-olds, well, you want to make the main character be like 13. It's kind of like Pokemon, right? Like Ash Ketchum is within that age, because Pokemon was designed to be like a cartoon for kids. So you don't want the situation where you're making something T for teens and you're constantly casting characters that are over the age of 35 or around 40, because from their perspective, it would look like it's grandma. Now, there's no problem with casting elderly characters, especially if it's like in the role of a mentor, or if it's someone in the background, or if it's someone that is just an NPC. But when you're casting like the main adventurous character, when you're casting the main plotline, when you're casting someone that's supposed to be involved in a romance setting that you want the audience to connect with, casting elderly characters or middle-aged and upper that is going to cause bad writing. It's going to break immersion. Like it happened to my wife. She's like, well, why is this happening, right? Like, why is this perfect 10 out of 10 guy going with this obviously character that's mid, right? Like he should be like Jeff Bezos. I mean, look at Jeff Bezos' wife looks like, right? Or every other millionaire and billionaire. Like, look at how their significant others looks like. Look at that guy, George Soros, right? Look at his wives. Like you get to notice when you look in reality how human beings actually date versus what's happening on Netflix. And there's a reason for that, right? Here you have Blizzard being caught with some of their internal memos. And when designing a character, instead of being interesting, okay, well, what makes her cool? Like what the kit should be like? What do you think the audience is going to say? How they're going to be well received? You know, let's look at some other games that are popular. Like, what other games came out that are popular with a lot of female characters? Which one of those female characters are liked by fans and why? Instead of, like, thinking about this, what they're thinking about, though, is the diversity quota. So, like, one of the things that is on the diversity quota is actually the age, right? So, like, the older the character, the more middle-aged the character, the more points. And they literally have, like, a points chart in order to create characters. And when you look at it, it's like if they're a man, they get 0 points. If they're a woman, they get points. age, the culture, apparently, right? So, like, if it's non-American, it gets more points. The gender identity, and this is where you want the character to be as non-binary looking as possible. And you have, like, all of these nonsense, right? Like, that the customer really doesn't give a shit about. But what happens if you max them out, you usually get ugly characters. Like, the one with the culture, like, that one is fine. But, like, all the others, if you're trying to market the video game to, like, teenage boys, and you're maxing all this shit, there is no way that your game is going to be having a more interesting design than games that came out before 2016. Now, the cope is unreal, right? Like, despite the fact that we get to see this happening in almost every single video game and entertainment that's coming out of the West, like it's blatant, right? Like, this is not some sort of discovery. This is like people going, oh, I mean, obvious, and now it makes sense. There's a lot of cope on Twitter, and they're saying, well, no, this was just like a Blizzard showcase, and this is not real. But recently, no, apparently it is real, because even Asmongold covered it. And as you get to see, they're talking about celebrating black culture, right? So, like, what exactly is black culture? Well, this is black culture. And the thing is, like, it's in Call of Duty. Like, what does this have to do with Call of Duty? Call of Duty is a slow-paced military shooter. This does not fit at all in the universe, but it does fit with the message. So they're trying to push this message, and they're basically saying, well, even if it doesn't fit, even if it doesn't make sense, we're still going to do it. And this is why so many games are bad now. It's because the priorities aren't focused on how to make a good product, how to make it better. Like if you're making Call of Duty, what you would want is to actually ask the military for help. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but if you think about it, Stargate did just that. So Stargate actually asked and had consultants that worked with the Air Force, and they would tell them how to make better episodes. And this is why, like, Stargate was so amazing. Call of Duty should do the same. Like, they should have had consultants with the military and ask them, like, how can we do it better? Like, how do you guys do operations? What are the signs you use? Like, let's add the sign language into the game. What are some of the squad tactics you use? Like, let's try and add that into the game. Like, that would have been really great. But instead, what they're focusing on is this stuff. You know, they're focusing on hip-hop. They're associating black culture with hip-hop, so much so that even when you have a game like Assassin's Creed, where the main protagonist is black, and the game takes place hundreds of years ago in Japan, before hip-hop was even invented, you still have Japanese music with hip-hop bits, right? Like, this is what they think. Because they don't really care. They don't have passion. That's the main issue. They don't have passion into making a game where it's like, all right, well, we have a black protagonist. How can we make it cool? Like, what exactly would make this be even better? No, like, what they do is like, all right, well, we got the checklist, and we gotta make it so that it's at least at a superficial level part of black culture. So, like, we're going to focus on America specifically, right? Like, we're not even going to look at what cultures are in Africa, because, like, that would make sense. Yasuke is from Africa, right? So, like, no, instead they're going to look like, okay, well, what do we have in California? What do we have there? Well, let's look at the black population that lives in America. What do they like? Well, they like hip-hop music, don't they? Okay, so you put that in, right? You put, like, a famous singer in, and there you go. That's black culture. We got our points. We did the deed. If anyone complains or calls us out, we call them racist, and we move on. So this is the absolute state of the gaming industry now. And it's very easy to explain. Now take into account, this is the visible part. Like, this is the part that no one can argue with. Like, you just see it and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, obviously. But they do this internally as well. Like, if you're a person that's one of the best programmers in the world and you're working for one of these companies, but you say something on Twitter that's not a good joke, or you gossip at the office and you say something that upsets people, you get fired. Right? And instead, they will hire someone that agrees with this. They will hire someone that thinks this is the best shit ever. In fact, even if you're not making racist jokes and you're just saying that, yeah, like, I think this is shit, I don't like this, you also get in trouble. So, like, they change their staff constantly in order to make them more in line with this. And then they end up with people that are so bad, can't code for shit, and you end up with AAA games releasing and not working on day one. Like, all of this shit is connected, you know? But you have these people that like to deconstruct and dismantle, and they will be like, oh, you're focusing on the aesthetics, and that's the only problem that you have, right? Like why are you focusing on the aesthetics? Why are you focusing on the age of the characters? And if you're going to deconstruct it like that, you're not going to get the answer. It's literally everything interconnected, and it's part of this ideology. So when you see, a video game that tries to establish a romance, and the main character, like the woman, is an elderly lady, and the guy is a 10 out of 10 husbando, you know that it's part of the ideology. Like, it's part of this. And if it's part of this, chances are the entire game is going to be bad. It's going to be buggy. It's going to probably not even work on launch. It's going to have bland and generic gameplay, because it's not about the age of the characters, but that's like part of the whole package, right? Like, you need to start recognizing the package as a whole and not just focus on one thing. That one thing that I'm pointing out is just like the way to recognize, the way to assess. But in reality, it's the whole thing. So let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.